Chapter 87, 5th year, morning after. Thursday, March 11th, 1976. Remus gave up at that point. He had been lying awake in bed since at least 5 o'clock in the morning, alternately panicking and soaring with joy. He had to be mad, mental, crazy, bonkers, lost it. He'd thought that talking to someone else might help, but who could you talk to that early in the morning, especially when it concerned a secret which could very well get you expelled, for all Remus knew? Unable to find a solution by talking to an imaginary person, or at least an imagined version of a real person, he returned to his previous, somewhat less constructive diversion, trying to relive the 3 minutes on the staircase with Sirius last night without reliving the part where they both ran away from each other. Did he regret it? It was too soon to tell. On the one hand, Remus might well have just ruined the best friendship he had ever had, or ever would have. On the other hand, it had been a bloody good snog. In Remus's limited experience, he thought it probably made sense that just because you really madly fancied someone, it didn't mean that when you finally kissed them, it would be as good as you'd imagined. And Remus knew he had a very vivid imagination sometimes, but Sirius was serious. It had been anything but disappointing. It had been perfect, in fact, as long as you pretended that last part hadn't happened. Stifling a groan, he scolded himself and tried to think rationally. Approach it like an essay, he thought. Lay out all the facts, then make your argument. So, the facts. A. Remus Lupin had kissed Sirius Black full on the lips. B. Sirius Black had not immediately thrown a punch. C. Sirius Black had actually kissed Remus Lupin back, despite what the imaginary Grant had to say. D. Sirius Black had also kissed Mary MacDonald immediately afterwards, and with considerable vigour. E. Sirius Black had not come to bed, at all. Bollocks. Shitting, buggering bollocks. Remus climbed out of bed. It was no good lying there tossing and turning. He had to get out of the tower. Sirius's bed lay empty to his left. If he wasn't in it, then he was most likely in the common room. To be safe, Remus took James's cloak. He was good at being quiet and moving without a sound, but he needn't have worried. Sirius was dead to the world. He lay on the couch, head flung back, the perfect line of his jaw exposed. Mary was curled up against his chest, a patchwork quilt thrown over the two of them. Remus hurried past, wanting to get as far away as possible. The Prefects' bathroom was probably one of the weirdest parts of the castle. Remus had thought the older students were teasing him when they gave out the password in the train back in September. He went once, and once only, in the first term, but couldn't get past the thought of actually removing all of his clothes in such a big open room. What if someone came in? However, on this particular morning, it was the only place he was sure he would not be found. Even if the marauders decided to use the map, they couldn't come and find him without the password. He reached the 4th floor and whispered, "Squeaky clean," at the entrance before slipping in. No one was in there. It was much too early. He had often wondered whether there was some kind of mechanism in place to stop anyone else from getting in while you were in the bath. He had so far seen no evidence of this and decided to play it safe. Stripping down to his boxers and vest, Remus ran the water and pumped a lot of bubbles into the Olympic swimming pool-sized bathtub before sliding in, still in his underthings. The bathroom was one of the most beautiful rooms in the castle, Remus acknowledged. Everything was clean white marble and glimmering golden taps. The stained glass windows depicted a series of gorgeous, shimmering sea creatures. A lovely tangerine smell was rising from the great white drifts of foam, and Remus finally began to relax. He had never learnt how to swim. The St. Edmund's boys were offered lessons down at the local swimming baths for free, but Matron wouldn't let him go. He hadn't minded. He didn't want the other boys to see his scars. But now he was older. He thought he'd like to learn. Sirius had once talked about family holidays in the south of France, where the sea was warm enough to bathe in. Remus couldn't imagine that. The only sea he'd ever seen was at Southend, and once Margate. It was bloody freezing, a dirty grey-green colour, not the crystal azure Sirius had described. Still, Remus could float. He lay on his back and stared up at the chambered ceiling. Remus sighed, frowning. Could you be a bad kisser and not know it? Probably. He didn't have enough experience to know. It hadn't felt bad. It had felt like they fit. He kissed me back. Remus knew, deep down, that it had nothing to do with how he'd done it. It was the very fact that he'd done it at all. He knew it, but he wasn't ready to address it yet, not even with an imaginary person. If he was being thoroughly truthful, Remus knew that Sirius had every right to run away, to be shocked, confused, or even frightened. And there was a mad kind of Sirius Black logic behind snogging the very first honest-to-goodness girl he could find, right after something like that. Once again, Remus was confronted with the image of Sirius pressing Mary up against the mantelpiece, those hands on her waist that had been on his waist only moments before, and he kicked, involuntarily, forgetting to stay afloat. Spluttering and choking as he went under, Remus scrabbled back to the surface and came up coughing, orange-hued foam going everywhere.
Remus, is that you?
A girl's voice echoed across the bathroom floor. He struggled to wipe his hair out of his face, blinking, and just made out the blurry outline of Lily Evans in a pink quilted dressing gown. He rubbed his eyes, hard, his feet finding the floor, and choked out, "Hiya, Lily."
Christ, are you okay? Thought I'd have to dive in and save you there.
Lost my balance.
I can't believe you beat me to a bath. I thought I'd be the first up. Got a filthy headache.
Lily rubbed her forehead with a pained expression.
Yeah, that punch was pretty strong.
Remus replied, though he felt fine.
I was just getting out. Do you mind turning around?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Lily smiled, turning her back. Remus moved to the side and pulled himself up out of the warm water with some reluctance. He felt silly and girlish, asking her not to look. James or Sirius probably wouldn't care at all. Grabbing a towel, he wrapped it around himself, over his shoulders, rather than around his waist. That wasn't exactly manly either, but he didn't need Evans asking about his scars on top of everything else.
Okay,
he said, hurrying into a changing cubicle. He heard Lily running the taps again, and a sweet lavender smell filled the room as he dried off and changed into his uniform.
So, where did you disappear to last night?
Lily called, over the noise of running water.
We must have gone on till at least 2. Potter was so pissed.
Must have got a bit too drunk.
Remus called back.
Went to bed at midnight.
Lightweight,
Lily teased. He heard the taps go off, and a soft splash as she got in the bath.
Still,
She carried on.
at least Sirius and Mary made up, eh?
Yeah, that was lucky.
He replied, evenly, exiting his stall. Lily was bobbing about at the far end of the pool, her red hair piled up on top of her head, surrounded by a sea of purple foam. She smiled at him.
Library,
He said, feeling awkward and clammy, fully dressed in the warm, steamy bathroom.
Of course.
She laughed.
Where else? Oh, did you see that notice in the common room?
No.
He shook his head. He had not looked at anything but Sirius in the common room.
Career meetings with McGonagall have been posted. Mid-April.
Oh, good.
Remus felt his limbs grow heavy.
Thanks.
It was a relief to be out of the hot bathroom, and rather than the library, Remus decided to go outside for a bit. To the greenhouses and back, maybe. There were sometimes a few Hufflepuffs hanging around there dealing pot, and even though it was a school day and he hadn't even had breakfast yet, this seemed like a very good idea. Why, indeed. This was the first bit of useful advice Imaginary Grant had dredged up, and Remus clung to it. Sirius needed to do whatever it was Sirius needed to do. It wasn't for Remus to decide. He congratulated himself on being very mature about this whole thing. After all, he thought, at least it's done now. At least you know what it's like. Could you survive forever, he wondered, on one kiss? Fortunately, there were indeed 3 Hufflepuffs sitting on the grass behind the greenhouses, 2 girls and a boy. They smiled at him in that friendly, stupid way that told him they had started early, and in slow and gentle tones congratulated him on the excellent party. He sat with them until he couldn't ignore his hunger pangs anymore and staggered back to the castle dizzily for breakfast.
Here he is.
James boomed as Remus took his place at the table.
Not so bloody loud, Prongs, I'm begging you.
Peter, who had his head in his hands and looked a bit green around the gills, groaned.
Oh, eat your eggs. You'll feel better.
James grinned. Remus piled up his own plate with 2 fried eggs, 2 sausages, a pile of baked beans, 3 slices of toast, 2 slices of fried tomato, and 3 rashers of bacon. He felt very calm and comfortable now. He could tell himself it had been the bath, but obviously not.
I can't tell if you're hungover or it's just that incredible metabolism of yours.
Marlene grimaced at his plate.
Bit of both.
Remus shrugged, tucking in.
And something else.
James wagged his finger.
Been down at the greenhouses already, Moony? Is this how you want to enter your 17th year?
Yes.
Remus said, mouth full. Sirius was there, of course, but he hadn't said anything yet. He was propping his head up sleepily on one elbow, nursing a large mug of milky tea. Remus stared at him intently, willing him to look up, but he didn't. Mary was nowhere to be seen.
McDonald's being a wimp.
Marlene explained.
Pulling a sickie. even though everyone saw her down an entire bottle of witch's brew by herself.
She did?
Remus said.
Wow, impressive. She probably deserves a lie-in then.
He meant it sincerely.
We're all feeling rough, though.
Marlene said.
Evans was chucking up for at least an hour before bed.
Is she okay?
James asked, scandalized.
Yeah, I saw her this morning in the Prefects' bathroom.
Remus said, swallowing his mouthful.
She's okay.
In the bathroom, eh?
James raised an eyebrow.
You've got to stop your philandering ways, Remus. Give the rest of us a chance.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Remus snorted.
The Casanova of Gryffindor Tower.
He'd only said it to make James laugh, but Sirius's head finally snapped up, his eyes resting on Remus. There was a tiny, almost imperceptible frown knitting his brow. He looked at Remus as if he was an incantation he hadn't yet worked out how to pronounce. Remus looked back, steadily, allowing this scrutiny. He would allow Sirius anything. Another moment, and it was over. Sirius looked away, saying nothing,